The baby's breath fogs against your shoulder, and that's the last warm thing you feel. Beneath your boots, the ice groans, a deep, ancient sound like old bones shifting under a winter sky. You don't stop. You can't. Not when the trees behind you are still echoing with horse hooves and men's voices calling your name like a curse. Your lungs burn with cold. Thomas wriggles in your arms, his wool bonnet slipping sideways. You tighten the shawl around him and press forward. The wind howls low and vicious across Gull Lake. You've crossed it before, but never in winter, never without a trail, never with men behind you who don't care if the baby cries when they shoot. The sky's gone the color of old pewter. You keep your eyes on the far shore. There's a black line of pines, and just beyond it, the place Patrick told you about before they silenced him. A place he said no map dares name. You take another step, the world shatters. One moment there's ice, the next there's nothing. You drop straight through, cold, like punishment, wraps your body, pulls you under so fast you don't have time to scream. Just a muffled gasp that turns into bubbles as lake water floods your ears, your mouth, your lungs. The baby, Thomas, you still hold him. One arm, numb, still wrapped around the bundle. His eyes are wide, mouth open, silent under the surface. You twist, kick, nothing. Your dress weighs like iron. The woolen cloak drags you deeper. And then it happens. The world stills. And the ice above you begins to speak. You see her first, a woman with a braid thick as rope and blood on her chest. Dakota. Her eyes don't blink. She floats upside down, hair fanned like ink in water. Beside her, children. Boys with bone pendants around their necks. One clutches a beaded moccasin too small for his foot. A soldier's cap drifts past your face. You see a hand reaching, long since dead, still grasping a rosary. Then another, a girl in a gingham apron. Her eyes are blue. Her skin is the color of ash. They stare at you. No mouths move, no words. But the lake remembers, and now you do too. Their pain folds into yours. Their last breaths fill your lungs. You feel the rifle butt, the blow to the back of the head, the silence of snow falling on blood. You are drowning, but not alone. Then hands, strong bare hands, reaching through the break, grabbing your coat, your hair, your baby, dragging you from the jaws of the lake with no words, no warning. You hit the ice like a corpse. Your back arches. You vomit lake water and blood. Thomas coughs once, a pitiful squeak that breaks into a weak cry. You're alive, but not safe. Through eyes blurred with cold and terror, you see him. The man, tall, silent, wearing a threadbare buckskin coat patched with old cavalry blue. His dark eyes unreadable beneath a fur hood. One hand still grips a canoe pole, the other clutches the baby close, wrapped tight in the red checked blanket you almost died with. He kneels, places the baby beside a flickering lantern. It's glass frosted, but still burning. Not magic. Signal fire. Behind him, a birch bark canoe, loaded supplies, medicine bundles, a cross carved into its side, half Catholic, half something older. The man doesn't speak. He just watches and waits, as if he's seen women drown here before, as if he knows this lake does not forget. You wake to the sound of firewood crackling and wet cloth dripping into a tin basin. Your body aches like it's been borrowed and bent the wrong way. The back of your skull throbs. Your throat burns. You try to move, but a heavy blanket, coarse wool, Ojibwe weave, pins you down. The baby, You sit up too fast. The world tilts, but there he is, Thomas, swaddled in dry flannel, face red with sleep and breath coming in tiny clouds. He's warm. You don't understand how. You remember the lake, the plunge, the hands, You turn your head. The man is still here, squatting at the edge of the fire, carefully rotating a kettle above the flames. He doesn't look at you, just hums softly in a language you don't recognize. Not words exactly, more rhythm than speech, a chant or a prayer. By his side, a worn leather pouch, a loop of beads, and a small cedar cross. One item rests on top, a child's rattle made of carved bone. You're too tired to ask questions, but your eyes keep drifting. The rattle, the cross, the fur-trimmed leggings, a scar along his cheek, like an old knife wound that never closed clean. He finally speaks, not to you, to the baby. Petit homme, tu dors comme un roi. His voice is low, measured, French. Your tongue feels heavy, but the word slips out before you mean to say it. Who are you? He looks up, not startled, just still, as if weighing your voice, not the question. Then softly, in thickly accented English, Jean-Baptiste, Cadot. The syllables feel like they belong in snow, weighted, careful, not meant for shouting. You nod once, not trusting your own voice. He slides the kettle off the fire, pours the contents into a small birch cup, and sets it beside you. Willow bark? Birch ash? Cedar tip. You hesitate. He points to the cup again. For pain, he says simply. You drink. It tastes like dirt and fire. But within seconds, the burn in your throat begins to ease. The ache behind your eyes softens. He points to his chest, then to the ground beside the fire. Safe here. But not for long. You nod again. The next hour passes in silence. He tends to Thomas with the ease of a father, or maybe a man who has done this too many times for children not his own. Changes the cloth, wraps the feet, dabs something pungent across the baby's chest. You notice a necklace under his tunic, a tiny pouch tied with sinew, medicine bundle, half Catholic, half Ojibwe. You've seen men try to straddle two worlds. Most of them get swallowed by one. He doesn't ask your name, but when he sees you trying to sit up straighter, he wordlessly hands you a folded wool shawl and the baby's red-checked blanket, still damp but cleaner now. You clutch it to your chest like a flag from the country of the dead. The fire crackles. The wind outside keens against the pine bark. Jean-Baptiste kneels at the canoe's edge, lights the lantern again, and sets it by the hide flap of the shelter. A signal. Someone's watching. Somewhere in the trees. You can feel it. Your people, you manage. He shakes his head, then nods. Some, not all. Cryptic. But it's the best answer you'll get. You study him in the lantern light. There's a deep tiredness in his movements, like someone who's lived 2 lifetimes before 30, and a thin bandage across his shoulder. Blood. Who did that, you ask? He doesn't answer, just reaches for a roll of tobacco leaf and begins to twist it slowly, rhythmically. You look down at Thomas. His chest rises and falls. For the first time in days, he's not crying. You should be grateful. You are. But part of you is scared in a way you can't explain, because this man's silence isn't empty. It's full of things unsaid, full of choices made in the dark, and you're not sure yet if you've been rescued or marked. The fire pops. Outside, the wind shifts. Jean-Baptiste speaks again, softer this time, almost like he's talking to himself. White Hand Company. Followed you. Same men who burned Brunner Farm. They come for you next. Your stomach drops. He finally looks at you. You stay here. You die. Then he stands, wraps the lantern in cloth, and steps out into the snow, leaving you by the fire, alive, but not alone. Not anymore. Your eyes scan the darkness, but you already know you're not alone. The moment the lantern flickers, you freeze. You don't move. Don't speak. Just listen. The sound comes again, not wind, not wood creaking, a shape, moving just beyond the edge of light. You grip the hatchet tighter in your palm, blood sticky around the handle. Every instinct says not to call out. But every part of you, the mother part, the human part, already knows. The trapdoor to the root cellar hangs open behind you, ice-rimmed, forgotten. The baby sleeps wrapped in fur beside the stove, one cry away from waking. You raise the hatchet, step toward the door, and then he speaks. Don't. A single word, low and steady. The kind of voice that never asks, only tells. The kind of voice that's known too many winters to waste breath on lies. You turn, and there he stands. Not an outlaw, not a rescue party. He wears no blue coat, no silver star. Only rawhide, snow-beaten, and frost-whitened braids. His face is half shadow, half moonlight. But the eyes don't flinch. They've seen you bleeding in the snow. They've carried your child. And they carry something else, too. A silence that hums louder than shouting. You stare, you wait. He doesn't step closer, just lowers what he's holding. A flint striker, birch bark tinder, and a pouch, sealed tight. He lays it beside the door. Her fever. This will help. Then silence. You should ask who he is, why he's here, how he knew. But your throat won't open, not after 3 days of screaming into empty wind. He points toward the root cellar, and you realize he knows. Knows what's down there, knows what you had to do. The dead eyes, the clawed hands, the man who followed you too far into the gorge. You watch him. He doesn't ask about the blood on your boots or the rifle resting beside the cradle. Only one thing leaves his mouth again. Keep the flame steady. And then he's gone, back into the dark, like he was never real to begin with. But in the pouch, dried sweet flag, sage, ground willow bark. Medicine you haven't seen in 2 winters. You boil it slowly, watching the steam rise. The baby stirs, breathes easier. For the first time since the ice broke under your wagon, you let your shoulders fall. You don't know his name, but you know this. No white man would have found you here. No soldier would have left without taking, and no ghost would have known how to tend a fever. You add more wood to the fire, and then gently lower the baby closer to the flame. Just enough to feel safe again. Just enough to believe in something that doesn't need words. Some men knock, some vanish, and some, they return when the fire starts to die. You don't sleep, not really. You sit with your back to the wall, boots still on, watching the last of the lantern oil burn low. Thomas sleeps deeper now, breath no longer ragged. The medicine worked. You want to feel grateful, but all you feel is raw. Just before dawn, the wind shifts, and you smell blood. You rise slow, silent, slip the rifle from its peg, and nudge open the door with your boot. There's a trail in the snow, half covered by night drift, not footprints, drag marks, and crimson smeared wide like something tried not to fall. You follow it through the pines. You find him slumped against the base of a cedar, breathing in shallow gasps. Jean-Baptiste. His coat soaked through, the left sleeve torn, blood black and glossy under the moonlight. He's not unconscious, but close. You kneel, pull aside the fabric, and there it is. A wound. Deep. Old but freshly split. Cracked open like the past came back and bit down again. The edge is clean, bone deep, fletching still inside. Arrow, but not for killing. You know this kind of strike. Trackers use it to mark something that runs or something that owes. You press snow to the wound hard to stop the bleeding. He flinches, but doesn't cry out. Just stares past you like he's watching someone else years away. You whisper, "This isn't new, is it?" He says nothing. You grit your teeth, dig the arrow out in one pull, then bind the shoulder with strips from your own hem. It's crude work, but it'll hold. He doesn't thank you, just rasps out one name, Standing Wolf. You pause. That's a war name. Ojibwe? No. Dakota. You don't ask the question aloud. Doesn't matter. The answer's in his silence. You know now what he is. Not just a man with two names. He's a man who's run from both. You haul his arm over your shoulder, half carry, half drag him back through the trees. He tries to resist. No, they watch. The flame. I know, you bite. That's why we need to put it out. Back at the cabin, you douse the lantern, pull down the hide flap, stack wood against the door. Then, only then, do you let your legs give out. You sit across from him, two shadows in firelight, the smell of blood still sharp. You study him, not the wound, the man. His face is younger than you thought, the kind of young that's aged fast. Not from years, but from memories he doesn't tell. He watches you back. Finally you ask, why didn't you kill him? A beat, a slow breath. Then, because I did once already. You blink. What do you mean? Jean-Baptiste closes his eyes and tells you about a winter 5 years ago. Dakota camp near Big Sandy. Women, children, and 3 warriors. A peace signal flying. He was guiding soldiers then, didn't ask questions, didn't speak the words, just rode ahead, marked the path, watched the smoke rise in the distance. When the scream started, it was already too late. 40 dead, and 1 boy who lived. Standing Wolf. He was 10, Jean-Baptiste says. Now he hunts me, doesn't miss, never speaks. You ask why he hasn't turned himself in, faced it. He looks at you and says, "You don't pay a debt like that in words." He leans back, closes his eyes. You stare into the fire. You could turn him in. You could leave now, take the baby, head north, find some Catholic town and start over. But you won't. Because something ugly inside you knows that kind of sin. Not the blood part, the looking away. Patrick tried to stop White Hand Company. They buried him for it. You just ran. Until now. You reach for the pouch, the one with the bone rattle and cedar cross. You lay it beside his hand. Then you better stay alive, you whisper, so you can finish paying. His eyes open, and for the first time they soften. Outside the wind picks up again, but inside this circle of firelight, for one moment, 2 broken people sit breathing, not saved, not forgiven, but not alone either. He sleeps through the morning, but you don't. You sit by the fire, legs tucked under, hands wrapped around a tin mug gone cold 3 times now. The baby is quiet, cooing in his sleep, one tiny fist curled under his chin, like he's dreaming about something sweeter than this world has ever offered. Jean-Baptiste breathes in that shallow rhythm of someone who's learned not to cry out. You watch him. The bandage holds, barely. His wound still seeps, but slower now, the way a wound stops arguing with the body and starts to give in. You hear bird song, just 2 notes, then 3. Not natural. Someone sending a signal. Close. From the tree line, you freeze. He stirs, doesn't open his eyes, but mutters, "Ignore it, not for us." You glance at him. Are you sure? He nods, but his hand reaches for the knife tucked beneath his bedroll all the same. Not for us, you think, but not harmless either. You let the silence settle again, and then, softly, like testing if your own voice still works, you say, "His name was Patrick." Jean-Baptiste doesn't move. You go on anyway. "My husband. He died 6 months ago. That's what they told me. Wagon accident. But I found blood on the wheel rim, 2 sets of prints, and no wagon ever turns that clean on a hill." Still no response. You stare into the fire. I think he knew something. Maybe about the land. Maybe about what they were doing with those papers. Maybe about Helena. Now Jean-Baptiste shifts. Not big, just the tilt of his chin, but you know he's listening. "She was our neighbor. Had a little girl. Greta. We used to trade flour for milk. I remember her humming to the baby through the window. Always the same tune. You hum it. Just a fragment. Enough to make your own breath catch. Jean-Baptiste's eyes open. "She died 2 weeks before Patrick," you say. "Fell through the ice," they said. "Body never found." Like a bad fairy tale. Now he speaks. "They lied." 3 syllables, heavy as stone. You don't flinch. You already knew. But hearing it, aloud from someone who's seen the ledger, makes your hands go still. "I wore her dress," you whisper. "When you pulled me from the lake. It wasn't mine." He nods. "She died holding the baby. They found her at the mouth of Otter Tail Creek. Her husband, he was German militia, fought at Buena Vista. Thought he could protect them. He couldn't." You breathe deep. The smoke burns. "I think they meant me to die, too. Or at least disappear." He watches you. Carefully. "They buried me under the wrong name," you say. "Said I was sick. Fever took me. They burned the letter, sold the house, took the land." Jean-Baptiste's jaw clenches. "That's how they do it." You look up. "The White Hand Company." He nods. "And men like Morrison behind them. They use the death records to erase, to steal. And when someone notices, they disappear too." You stare at each other. 2 people dragged back from the edge of forgetting. "I stopped speaking the day they took Patrick," you say. "Didn't say a word for 6 months." His voice is gentler now. "What made you start again?" You meet his gaze. You did. His mouth doesn't move, but something behind his eyes flickers, like a wick, too damp to catch, still tries to burn. You shift the baby in your lap. Thomas stretches in his sleep. "I want to find Helena's girl," you say. "If she's still alive. Greta. I want to bring her home." Jean-Baptiste nods. "She is, hidden, but not far." Your eyes widen. "You knew?" "I helped bury the mother," he says quietly. "But someone else carried the girl." "Who?" He hesitates. "Someone who owes nothing. I'll take you." You breathe in. For the first time in too long, you believe you will. That night, after Thomas falls asleep and the fire dies down to coals, Jean-Baptiste says one more thing before sleep takes him. "Grief is heavy," he murmurs, "but silence weighs more." You look over and say, "Then maybe we carry it together." You reach the grove at dawn. It isn't marked on any map. No trail leads here. just a thinning of pines and a sudden hush, like the woods themselves have stepped aside. You feel it before you see it, a stillness older than language, older than you. Jean-Baptiste stops short. This is where they keep the names. You glance at him. He doesn't say more, doesn't need to. It's not a cemetery. It's something older. The trees are tall and close together, every trunk marked with fine knife carvings, some spiraled in rings around the base, others slashed in vertical lines from root to crown. Birch bark, peeled and restitched with sinew, flutters like prayer flags in the morning breeze. You take a step forward. The baby stirs in your sling, but stays quiet, as if even he understands. You pass the first tree, one name, Helena Brunner. Then a mark beside it, two vertical lines and a circle. You don't know what it means, but someone carved it with care. Then another, Greta. No last name, no date, just that. And a second mark beside it, smaller, a spiral like the shell of a snail. Jean-Baptiste nods toward the spiral. Still alive, he says. You blink. The symbols? He gestures to the left. That means lost. That means dead. That means survived. The elders read the bark like stories. You run your hand across Helena's name. The bark is smooth beneath your fingers, but the cuts go deep, deeper than they look. Did you carve these? He hesitates. Some. You turn toward the far side of the grove. The wind picks up. A single ribbon of birch flutters loose. And there, etched low almost to the roots, you see it. Patrick Walsh. Your knees almost buckle. You stumble forward, fingers shaking. It's your husband's name, not yours. Not misspelled, not abbreviated, carved clean, and beneath it, the same spiral as Greta. You swallow hard. He's alive, you whisper. Jean-Baptiste steps beside you. No. Your breath hitches. Then why the symbol? He's quiet for a long time. Then, because someone thought he was, because someone hoped. You don't realize the tears are falling until you taste salt on your lips. You clutch the sling against your chest, the baby warm and heavy against you, a heartbeat where your husband's should have been. Jean-Baptiste kneels, brushes snow away from another name. You recognize it too. Eric Brunner. Helena's husband, but the mark beside it is crossed out. Once, then again. You look at him. What does that mean? He looks away. Sometimes they carve a name, thinking someone's gone, then learn they're not. But if that man comes back and causes more harm, they cross it again. You don't ask. You don't want to know what Eric Brunner did after Helena died. Instead, you kneel beside Patrick's name. You press your hand to the spiral and whisper, I'm sorry. Not for him. For you. For not fighting sooner. For believing them. For letting them put dirt on his memory without digging it up yourself. You stay there a long while, until Jean-Baptiste says softly, We should go. Someone watches the grove. They don't like people staying too long. You nod. Rise, one last glance over your shoulder at the tree that holds your husband's name. Then you turn away. As you leave, you pass another tree, one without a name, just a mark, cut so deep it bled sap down the trunk. A handprint, a child's. Jean-Baptiste doesn't look at it. You don't ask. But as you walk into the sunlit snow, you say quietly, They carved Patrick's name. That means they knew him? Jean-Baptiste answers without turning. They didn't just know him, he says. They listened to him. You stop walking. That changes everything. Because if these people, people who carve names into trees instead of stones, trusted your husband, then maybe it's not too late to finish what he started. The post sits like a scar on the tree line, not quite a town, not quite abandoned, just one long building with a low roof and sagging timbers, guarded by 2 broken wagons and a sign that once read Hudson's Supply, now worn to sun sup and splinters. Jean-Baptiste doesn't approach it head-on. He circles wide through the brush, testing the snow for prints. A glance to the chimney. Cold, no smoke. But the mule tied at the far end has frost on its mane, not ice. Someone's here, recently. He gestures for you to stay low. You do. Inside, the baby breathes against your chest. One tiny sigh, then quiet again. You watch Jean-Baptiste slip through the back door, silent as breath. You count to 60, twice. Then he returns, eyes dark. No men, just paper. He pulls something from under his coat. A bound ledger. You duck behind the pine. He lays it flat between you and the snow. The ink's still wet in places. Traders write slow when they know what they're doing's fast, he mutters. You glance down at the names. A list. Column after column, family names, parcel codes, cause of death, typhus, infant failure, pneumonia, drowned, drowned, drowned. Your hand trembles. There it is. Mary Catherine Walsh. Next to it, cholera, no burial, cleared for reassignment. Then, a thick, black line through your name, not erased, just crossed out, like they needed to make it official before moving on. Your throat tightens. You turn the page. Helena's name, Greta's, Patrick's. But next to Patrick, interfering with survey operations, recommended silence, executed, no retrieval. You stare at the word, executed. Not an accident, not disease. It was ordered. Who writes this, you ask. Jean-Baptiste points to the initials at the bottom of the page. E.T. You frown. Ezra Thorne. He nods once. Captain now. White Hand Company. Worked land reassignment after the Treaty of Washington, used army posts to fake epidemics, sealed death records to clear land faster. You flip further back. Earlier entries. You find familiar names, people who left town quietly, families who were relocated. You remember their faces, but never saw them again. You thought they'd moved to Wisconsin. They didn't. You shut the book, pulse loud in your ears. They're building a ledger of the dead, you say, but most of them aren't even buried. Jean-Baptiste stares at the trees. Dead don't need graves, just silence. He kneels, digs a shallow hole with his knife, and buries the ledger under the roots of a dead juniper. I don't understand, you say. Why not burn it? Why hide it? He ties the cloth back over his coat. Because if we survive, it's evidence. But if we die, it becomes truth. That's when you hear it. A creak. Boot on old wood, you turn fast. A figure at the edge of the clearing, too far to see the face. Just the long coat, pale, like snow, and one gloved hand resting on the butt of a rifle. Jean-Baptiste freezes, doesn't move, doesn't speak. The man doesn't raise the weapon, just nods. Once, then vanishes back into the trees. You whisper, "One of yours?" Jean-Baptiste shakes his head slowly. No. You don't know what that means, but you know this. The dead are keeping records now. And you're not on their side yet. He rises. We need to move. You sling the baby tight, eyes still on the place where the man stood. No footprints, no trail, just silence, where a warning used to be. Later that night, when the fire's down to red coals and you're both back in the lean-to, you whisper across the dark. If they crossed me off, Why are they still chasing me? Jean-Baptiste doesn't answer right away. Then, because you came back. And after a pause, and you remember. You pull the blanket tighter around Thomas. In the silence that follows, you finally understand something. Erasing a name is easy, but killing a witness, that takes more work. The chimney still stands, the rest is gone. You see it from a mile off, blackened stone rising like a grave marker above a sea of white. The roof long collapsed, walls scorched down to their bones, snow drifted deep into the shell of what once was a home. Brunner Farm, Helena's place. Jean-Baptiste says nothing as you approach, neither do you. There's nothing to say, only the sound of snow crunching under your boots, and the wind whispering through the holes where a family used to live. You cross what once was the threshold. The baby stirs in his sling, but doesn't wake. He seems to know, here is a place that doesn't ask for sound. You scan what remains. The wood stove sits collapsed in the center. Burned clean through. Half a spinning wheel rests against the back wall, melted yarn frozen in a curdled knot. A rusted milk pail untouched, a bone-handled spoon, and in the corner, where the crib might have been, char. But something catches your eye. Beneath the layer of soot and snow, the faint shimmer of silver. You kneel, brush gently with your fingers. It's a locket. You wipe it clean, thumb trembling. The clasp barely holds. Inside, 2 tiny daguerreotypes. Helena, eyes pale, unsmiling but soft around the mouth. And beside her, a man, blond, uniformed. German epaulets from the Mexican War. You can almost smell the pipe smoke in his coat. Her husband. Jean-Baptiste stands over your shoulder. Eric, he says quietly. You nod, then turn it over. There's something etched on the back. 2 initials. GB. Greta Brunner, you whisper. She dropped it running, Jean-Baptiste says. I remember. She kept looking back. Her mother was already gone. You close the locket, press it to your palm. You carried her? He nods. Tried to give her to the missionaries near Sauk Center. They wouldn't take her. You look up. They said she wasn't Christian. They said she wasn't white. Your throat tightens. He reaches into his coat, pulls out a folded cloth, unwraps it. Inside, a child's mitten, wool, faded pink, the name Greta stitched in thread, barely holding. She dropped this too, he says. Didn't cry, just sat quiet. You touch the mitten, thumb over the fraying yarn. Where is she now? He hesitates. With a woman who knows how to hide. Ojibwe. No name, no house, just trail marks in the birch trees. You nod. We'll find her. He tucks the mitten back, then walks toward the edge of the ruin. You follow. And that's when you see it. The ground's torn, like something was dragged, not fire damage. A patch of earth sunk lower than the rest. You kneel again, dig with your bare hands. Jean-Baptiste moves beside you, pulling frozen mud away with his knife. 3 feet down. Wood. Not a casket, just a crate. You pry it open. Inside, ledger paper half burned. Charred tax forms. One corner untouched. You hold it to the light. Patrick's handwriting. You don't breathe. It's a land survey. Coordinates. Names, notes. Helena's land. Greta's inheritance. And a signature below it, not Patrick's. Ezra Thorne's. Dated 1 week before Helena died. You feel it like a slap. They forged this, you say. Jean-Baptiste reads over your shoulder. And buried it to cover the timing. You blink hard. Your husband tried to stop this. He collected proof. He hid it here. and they burn the whole house to keep it hidden. You rise, face flushed with cold and fury. "We take this to Fort Snelling," you say. "To the magistrate. Let him see." Jean-Baptiste doesn't answer, just looks past you, toward the forest. "What is it?" you ask. He raises a hand. "Hoof prints, 6 riders, coming fast." Your heart thuds. You clutch the locket and the paper tight, and suddenly this place isn't sacred anymore. It's a trap. You both run. No words, no plans, just instinct. Through the trees, down toward the ravine, snow breaking underfoot, whoomp, thump, wind clawing at your coat. He stops at a fallen log. "Under," he says. You dive. Shield the baby. Press yourself flat into the hollowed center. He follows, silent, one hand on his revolver. The riders pass above, white gloves, gleaming buttons. One voice carries, "Burned it too fast. She might have left something." Then hoofbeats fade, and all that's left is the sound of your own breath, and the paper still clutched in your fist. Your husband died for this. Now you'll finish what he started. You don't sleep that night. Neither does Jean-Baptiste. The baby stirs once, twice, then settles back to sleep. You can't tell if it's peace or exhaustion. The fire is low, more ember than flame now. You leave it that way. It's harder to spot smoke in the dark. Jean-Baptiste crouches near the flap, rifle in his lap, eyes never blinking for long. He's listening, not just for sound, but for change. Wind shifting, bird song halting, silence arriving too fast. Then he whispers, "They're here." You don't ask how he knows. You just gather Thomas against your chest and back into the shadows. Boot steps, slow, heavy, 6 pairs at least, maybe 7. No shouts, no horses, just the soft rhythm of death that already knows your name. A knock, 3 taps, not hard enough to break the door, just enough to say, "We already know you're in there." You hold your breath. Another knock. Then a voice, smooth, clean, with the kind of pronunciation they teach in offices, not battlefields. "Mrs. Walsh, we're here for your protection. You've been listed as a vulnerable party following recent accidents in the territory. If you'll come with us, we'll take you somewhere safe." You clench your jaw. Jean-Baptiste whispers, "Don't answer." The voice continues, unfazed. "I understand you may be frightened. That's natural. But it's also unfortunate, because if you force us to breach entry, your son may be considered at risk." Your breath catches. He knows about Thomas. "On behalf of the White Hand Company, I advise compliance." Jean-Baptiste moves toward the back hatch, motions for you to get low. Then, crack! The front door shatters inward. You shove Thomas under the floor hatch. Jean-Baptiste fires once. A man screams, then smoke, thick, chemical. Not from the fire, tear compound, military grade. Your eyes burn. You feel hands grabbing at your shawl, dragging you back. Not Jean-Baptiste, someone else. You fight, kick, elbow, teeth if you have to. A fist lands against your cheek, blinding. But before you fall, another shot, close, messy, too loud to be warning. The man drops. You roll free. Jean-Baptiste yanks you toward the hatch, shoves you through, then drops the beam across the trap door. You don't hear him come down after you, but you hear the fight, boots crashing, flesh hitting walls, muffled grunts, a rifle crack. Then silence. You press your hand to your mouth, trying not to sob, and then the hatch opens. He lowers himself down, dragging a sack of supplies, blood slick down one arm. His jaw is bruised, one eye swelling, but he's alive. He presses a finger to your lips, then lifts a white glove, stained red. "Too loud," he whispers. We have to move now. You travel by frozen creek bed, a trick learned from war scouts. Always move where sound runs away with water. Jean-Baptiste doesn't speak until you're 2 miles from the cabin. Then, they weren't just men. You look at him. He pulls something from his coat. Not paper, not a badge. A wax seal, pressed with a private crest. An eagle holding an olive branch and a whip. You recognize it, barely, from the governor's land deeds, from the cover page of Helena's tax letters. They're federal? Jean-Baptiste shakes his head. Private army, contracted through the Bureau, legally invisible. Your hands go numb. They came for Thomas, you whisper. He nods. They knew your husband tried to file land retention for Helena's family. The Brunner land connects to Dakota Resource Territory. They need it cleared. Your son's claim through Patrick still matters, even if you don't. You stop walking. He turns to face you. I'm not just running anymore, you say. I'm done hiding. We take this all the way up. Jean-Baptiste stares at you, then nods, slow. We'll need help. You clench the wax seal tighter. I know where to start. Later that night, in a dry cave beneath a cedar bluff, you lay Thomas beside the fire. He opens his eyes once and smiles. Just enough to remind you, you didn't come this far just to survive. You came to be remembered. The town is clean, too clean. Not a nail out of place, not a cobble cracked. White fences painted this morning, by the look of them. Even the smoke rising from chimneys smells more like polish than wood. Jean-Baptiste keeps to the alleys. You walk with the baby wrapped tight against your chest, a bonnet covering your face, a borrowed shawl hiding your coat. You keep your pace even, not fast, not slow. Like you belong here, like your name was never crossed out. You reach the magistrate's house by sundown. It sits 3 blocks off the main square, behind iron fencing and a hedge trimmed to perfection. The house has too many windows, the kind that watch more than they reveal. Jean-Baptiste hangs back. This part's yours, he says. They won't let me in. You know he's right. You climb the steps alone. At the top you pause. Adjust Thomas in your arms. And then knock, not soft, not meek. 3 knocks, firm. You wait. Seconds pass. Then the door opens. The man is older than you expected. Silver beard, clean coat, spectacles resting low on his nose. He takes one look at your shawl, your eyes, the child, and frowns. May I help you? You square your shoulders. My name is Mary Catherine Walsh. This child is Thomas Patrick Walsh. We've come to report a violation of federal land law, falsified death certificates, and attempted murder. His eyebrows raise, but only slightly. You reach into your bag, pull out the folded survey paper, the ledger scrap, the wax seal. Proof, you say. He doesn't take them. Instead, he steps aside. Inside. You walk in. The warmth hits you first. Lavender soap, boiled starch, no wood smoke, the air of people who don't know hunger anymore. You sit on a chair too narrow for comfort, knees locked tight. He closes the door. Explain. You do, not every detail, but the bones of it. Patrick, Helena, the Brunner farm, the ledger, the White Hand Company, the 6 men who came with gloves and rifles and didn't ask questions. You finish with the baby's name, and by the law of descent in the Minnesota Territory, if Patrick's claim was valid, then his son, my son, retains rightful interest in Section 17, Lot 4, under Helena Brunner's trust. The judge's face doesn't move, but his fingers do, tapping, slow, against the armrest. You know what you're asking, he says. You nod. To be counted. A long pause. Then he reaches behind the desk. You flinch, but he only pulls out a bottle of ink and a logbook. What you've handed me, he says, is admissible, barely, but it's something. He opens the ledger to a fresh page, dips the quill. Say your name again. You do. Mary Catherine Walsh. He writes it. Neatly. As if it never vanished. Then he underlines it. Congratulations, he says quietly. You're alive again. You don't cry. Not yet. Instead, you slide the baby forward. Write his, too. He hesitates, then writes, Thomas Patrick Walsh. Next to it, Guardian Mary Catherine Walsh. And beneath it, just 3 words, claim pending review. You ask, how long? He looks at you. Depends who's watching. Then stands. Picks up the wax seal, breaks it in 2, lets it fall to the floor. Who else has seen this? He asks. You lie. Just me? He watches you a long moment, then nods. Then leave. Now. You rise. But before you go, he says one last thing. They won't let this go quiet. Not if you're telling the truth. You meet his eyes. I don't need quiet, you say. I need justice. Then you step outside. Jean-Baptiste is waiting beneath the tree line, eyes scanning every rooftop. You nod once. It's done. He doesn't ask what that means. He just turns toward the north road and says, then we'd better ride before they come asking who let you speak. That night, in a shack 2 towns over, with a pot of coffee boiling over ash, and Thomas asleep on Jean-Baptiste's chest, you breathe out for the first time in days. You still don't know if the truth will hold, but your name is back on paper. And sometimes that's the first kind of resurrection that counts. You see the first body at dawn, lying face down in the snow, rifle still strapped across the back, the coat's been stripped, hands bare, a single feather, broken, tucked into the hairline like someone meant to bury him but never got the chance. Jean-Baptiste doesn't stop walking. You hurry to match his stride. Scouts? He nods once. Not ours. You don't ask more. You know what it means. These weren't men who died hunting. They were hunted, and someone didn't bother hiding it. By the time you reach the edge of the clearing, 4 more bodies lie in silence, all wearing the same mark, small white gloves tucked into their belts like insignia, White Hand Company, stripped of their nameplates, boots gone, weapons shattered. Someone sent a message, but you don't know who to yet. Jean-Baptiste stops at the edge of the last tree line. He scans the land ahead. Just visible through the cold morning mist is the river bend. Beyond that, tucked into pine and shadow, a low hut, smoke curling through the thatched roof. You touch the locket still tucked into your coat. Is that her? He nods. Greta's there. You start forward, but he holds you back. Wait. He crouches, dips 2 fingers into the snow beside one of the bodies, holds it to his nose. Horse lather, he mutters. 3 riders, recent. Your heart thuds. Are they watching the house, or waiting for us to lead them in? You both crouch low, working your way around the slope. The baby shifts, once against your chest, then goes still. Not crying, just waiting, like you are. 10 minutes later, you reach the hut from the backside. Jean-Baptiste whistles, soft and low. A pattern, almost a tune. Nothing. Then the flap opens, and a woman steps out. She's old, or maybe just tired. Worn shawl over long braids streaked with ash gray. She carries no weapon. Just a stare that sees right through you. She doesn't speak, but she nods once. Jean-Baptiste walks to her. They exchange no words, just a look. Then she turns, steps aside, and you follow him in. The hut is small. One bedroll, one cooking pit. One child huddled in a corner, arms around knees, watching you with wide, pale eyes. You know it's her. Greta, you crouch low. "My name's Mary," you whisper. "I knew your mama." She doesn't move, but her breath quickens. She hummed to you every morning. This tune, you hum it, soft, broken in places. Greta's chin quivers. Then she crawls forward, silent as snowfall, and lays her head against your knee. You stroke her hair. She's gone, but you're not. She nods. Just once. Outside, Jean-Baptiste speaks quietly with the old woman. You catch only fragments, a name, a direction, a warning. Then he steps back inside. "They're coming," he says. "4 riders now, uniformed. They followed us from the town." You rise. "We run?" He shakes his head. "They'll find us again." He lays a wrapped bundle in your hands. Inside, the ledger scrap, the land survey, and Helena's locket. He meets your eyes. You take them. You take the children north across the river. "There's a Métis family who owe me favor. They'll hide you." Your throat closes. "What about you?" "I stay." You shake your head. "No." But his eyes are steady. "If they follow, they can't follow you." You try again. "You already paid." He touches your arm. Not all of it. Then crouches in front of Greta. "You remember what I taught you?" She nods. "You go now." He presses the smallest smile into her hair, then rises and walks out. You don't say goodbye. There isn't time. You wrap Greta in your shawl, Thomas tighter to your chest, and slip out the back of the hut. The cold bites. The snow stings. But you don't stop. You run. Across the frozen marsh, through the reeds, toward the river that divides everything you were from everything you still might become. Behind you, gunfire cracks, once, twice, then silence. You keep running, and this time you don't look back. You reach the river just before dusk. The ice is thick, but groaning beneath your boots, like it resents the weight of one more secret crossing. You've walked all day, back stiff, shoulders burning, legs numb from snow, but it's not your weight you're worried about. It's the children. Thomas sleeps, breath warm against your collarbone. Greta walks beside you, holding your coat with one small hand. She hasn't said a word in 2 hours, not out of fear, out of instinct. The kind of silence no adult could ever teach. You kneel at the edge of the ice, press your fingers to it. A spider web of cracks, but solid enough. You look north. Trees on the far bank. No houses, no horses, no gunpowder on the wind. Just quiet. You lead Greta forward first, step by step, across the wide white stillness. The sound of your breath feels too loud. Halfway across, she slips just a little. You catch her wrist before she falls. "Careful," you whisper. She nods, then keeps walking. Every step the ice speaks, not cracking, not shattering, just remembering. And that's when it hits you. This river, this very one. It's where they found Helena, where they said she drowned, but she didn't drown. She was chased, and they never meant for her body to be found. The river didn't forget, it brought her back. Now it brings you forward. You reach the far bank, collapse to your knees beneath a pine tree, chest heaving. The sun dips behind the ridge. For the first time in days, your hands stop shaking. A voice speaks from the trees. "You're late." You rise fast. body between the children and the sound. But it's a woman who steps out, tall red sash over a wool coat, thick scarf hiding most of her face, but not her eyes, sharp amber and not surprised. "You're Mary," she says. You nod, still panting. She jerks her head toward the woods. "Come, fire's ready. You'll want to burn what you're carrying." You hesitate. Then step forward. She leads you through a narrow trail into a hollow where smoke rises from a stone pit, a tent, a pair of snowshoes leaning against a cedar. And one more thing, a grave, marked only by a circle of river stones and one broken bough laid across the top. You stop, turn to her. "Who?" She doesn't answer, just stares at the flame. So you ask the only question that matters. "Was it quick?" She pauses, then says, "No, but it was clean." You nod. You don't cry. Not yet. Instead, you reach into your coat, pull out the ledger pages, the locket, the last scrap of survey with Patrick's signature still legible beneath the soot. You hand them over. "Don't burn this," you say. "Copy it. Show it to someone who'll understand." She looks at you. "I thought you came to forget." You shake your head. "I came to finish something." She holds your gaze, then nods once. "There's a wagon north in 3 days' time, Norwegian route. They'll take you across the line as far as St. Boniface." You ask, "Will they hide us?" She shrugs. "They'll lie if paid." You lower Thomas onto the bedroll inside the tent, pull Greta close. She leans into your side, her eyes never leaving the fire. You whisper, "We're almost there." She doesn't speak, but her little fingers slip into yours, like she believes you, like she knows this time no one gets left behind. Outside, the woman begins humming, low and strange. Not a song you know, but it sounds like a river, like a name being spoken to no one and answered all the same. You lie back, let the heat soak into your bones. And for the first time you let yourself whisper it. "Patrick." No answer, just the wind. But somehow that's enough, because tonight the river didn't take. It gave. The wagon waits where she said it would, near a break in the tree line where frost gives way to gravel and the last pine bends low over the trail like it's trying to listen. The horses stamp gently in their traces. The driver is older, wide-shouldered, red-bearded, Norwegian by the way he chews his pipe, and doesn't smile until he knows who you are. You say one word, "Walsh." He nods once, that's all. He helps you and the children climb into the back. Blankets, folded neat. Sack of cornmeal, small crate marked coffee that probably isn't. He doesn't ask about Greta, doesn't ask about Thomas, doesn't ask where the bruises on your wrist came from or why your coat smells like cedar smoke and blood. You're grateful. Jean-Baptiste isn't there, not yet. You want to believe he's gone ahead, or circled wide, or stayed behind to erase your trail, but there's a quiet in your chest that says maybe he gave the last piece of himself so you and the children could ride without looking over your shoulder. The driver clucks twice, and the wagon rolls forward. The trail is slow and winding, pines tall on either side like sentries. Greta falls asleep leaning against your arm. Thomas stirs only once before settling into that deep, unbothered sleep only babies and the truly forgiven know. And just when the sky starts to gray, you see him. Standing at the edge of the ridge, rifle slung over his shoulder, blood-stained coat replaced by a blanket draped like a sash, he doesn't wave, doesn't shout. Just walks down the slope, easy as smoke. Greta sees him first. She doesn't smile, just shifts in her seat and makes room. You hold your breath. He climbs into the wagon, nods at the driver, then sits across from you. "River held?" he asks. You nod. Held long enough. He pulls something from his coat, wrapped in oilcloth. You recognize the weight of it before you see inside. Your husband's wedding band. Found it where the house was, he says, buried near the locket crate. You take it in your palm, thumb across the inside. There's an inscription all the way north. P.W. Your breath catches. That's what he used to say, you whisper. Whenever we talked about running, Jean-Baptiste nods. You look up. You stayed behind. He shrugs. Someone had to tell them you were dead. Again? You wait. Then say the thing you haven't said since that night in the cabin. I'm not sure I'd still be here if it weren't for you. His face doesn't change, but something softens behind his eyes. He says, you were always here. You just needed someone to believe it. The wagon crests the hill. Below, a plain of silver grass, frost-tipped and open, stretches to the horizon. And in the far distance, through the morning haze, a thin black line, the border. The driver pulls the horses to a stop. He jerks a thumb. From here, you walk. No more trail, no more names. You nod. Climb down, lift Thomas, take Greta's hand. Jean-Baptiste steps beside you. You don't have to come, you say. I know, he replies. But he walks with you anyway. You pass the last pine, step across the line where trees give way to wind. The sun slips above the frost, and the air smells of open space and things not yet broken. You don't look back, not because there's nothing behind you, but because everything ahead is waiting. The nights are quiet now. You sleep light, but not out of fear, just habit. Thomas curls into your side without fuss. Greta hums to herself in her sleep, the same tune her mother sang, though she never heard it outside the cradle of memory. You don't talk much about before, not because it hurts, but because it's not gone. It's just settled, like ash under snow. Sometimes Jean-Baptiste walks the ridge alone, watching the smoke rise from the small chimney someone lent you. He never says what he's looking for. You never ask. One morning he hands you a folded slip of paper. It's not from him. It's a copy of the magistrate's entry book. Your name, Thomas's, Greta's, each one written in ink. None of them crossed out. You pin it above the hearth between a drawing Greta made and a rusted spoon from the Brunner farm. You don't light candles for the dead anymore. You remember them by keeping warm. Some stories end in silence. Others, they